What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Run Your Race Show with your host, Akeem
and Chanelle.
Man, we have a lot to discuss, and we're definitely going to get into it, as you know. But before we get into it, if you are enjoying the show, don't forget to like, comment, share the show, and definitely subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a cousin to tell a third, fourth, fifth cousin about the Run Your Race show. So we always try to think about what is the best way how to start this show. And as you can see by what we are wearing, it is Olympic trial season for all of the countries, not just Canada. Canada's coming up this week. This week, it is about USA Olympic trials. So in this episode, we're going to cover it from day 1 to day 4. May not seem like a lot, but a lot has happened. So far, just a brief overview before we get about the specifics. What has been just your initial thoughts on the your country's Olympic trials so far?
I just want to say that I had on my USA shirt first because it is our trials week, and then he went and found his Canadian jacket because he's a hater. But USA trials, it has definitely been exciting. A lot of shockers, which we will discuss, a lot of excited people, but also a lot of broken hearts, and I know that feeling all too well. So yeah, I'm just excited to dive in, but the action has been it has not disappointed. It has lived up to the hype of what USA Trials always lives up to, which is one of the hardest track and field teams to make. No, the hardest track and field team to make for the Olympics. And I'm just glad all the talk about running fast and why isn't everybody running fast. I'm glad that stopped, because you and I said earlier in the year that they're going to run fast when it matters, which is at the trials. And these athletes are doing that. So it's time to give them their props.
With all that being said, let's get into things. Let's start with, my event, the women's 100. We entitled this the sweep. Why is it called the sweep? Because this is Dennis Mitchell's group, and his 3 ladies swept it, right? Sha'carri Richardson, 1071, Melissa Jefferson, 1080, Twanisha Terry, 1089. So that's a season's best for Sha'carri, personal best for Melissa Jefferson, and a season best for Twanisha Terry. What was your thoughts on the rounds? What was your thoughts on the performance? And then when you saw the result and how elated they all were, just what was your thoughts on this whole lineup right here?
Richardson and Jefferson, that wasn't very surprising for me. They looked great. They've been looking great all year, and they looked great during the round. So I think those 2 were expected. Terry was that was a shocker for me. She hasn't really looked that great all year, and she didn't look phenomenal through the rounds, but she showed up when it matters. And, these 3 women, they said they knew this was possible. It was a goal for them to go 1, 2, 3. They train together, they push each other. And yes, it's possible, but to show up and do it on the day that it matters is just absolutely phenomenal. I was blown away. I was so excited for them and excited for their coach, Dennis Mitchell. It's just a tremendous accomplishment. So yeah, just really, really excited for them and what they did.
Sha'carri ran every round differently. The first round, she seemed like she had a massive misstep, and then she fixed it within 4 steps, and then just came up front side mechanics, knee lift, and then she ran 10.8. In the second round, in the second round, it was kind of similar, but she does what she does best. She gets upright running, front side mechanics, and then she just blew away from the competition. And in the final, better start, but then she just did what she does best, like blow away from the competition. She's going to be very, very tough to beat. Like, she's an extreme talent, one of those generational talents, and there have been very few sprinters that I can remember that has a front side mechanics like her, men and women. I've never seen a woman with front side mechanics like her before. As you said, I don't think it was a surprise. I think many of us expected her. I mean, she's the reigning world champion. So, when you won it before, you expect them to be able to do it again. And at the beginning of the year, she didn't really look too great. But when she came and ran that 10.8, in the 100 because she was running 200s. We're like, okay, yeah, she's pretty much right where she should be. Not a surprise there for Sha'carri. Melissa Jefferson, she has probably been the most consistent female sprinter this season, especially on the American side. I think this is actually the first time that she's lost all year was when she got here. But she's been, running 11.2s, -3 wind, and then she's been, running 11.0, and then slowly, consistently getting faster and faster and faster. She's very consistent. And so for her to drop a 10.80, I mean, that's a lean away from being 10.7. This wasn't too much of a surprise, but it definitely puts her in a contention now. Is like, man, we got to consider her as a potential medalist. 10.80 is a big time, and she still got time. Now, Twanisha Terry, we didn't really see too much of her throughout the season. She ran a couple 200s, maybe 1 or 200s, but then she kind of disappeared for a couple months, and we just didn't really see her. So we not going to say it is a complete surprise, but we weren't really expecting her to be in that third position. It was names like Tamari Davis. It was names like Aaliyah Hobbs, Mackenzie Long. Oh my man, we didn't even talk about Mackenzie Long, right? So we were expecting Mackenzie Long to make this team, but in the sprints, a little different than the 8, where I'm going to talk about a little bit later, you can't really make too much mistakes in the 100 meters. Even the mistakes that Sha'carri made just by not getting out as well, she got that X factor, that top end that can bail her out. Mackenzie Long has that top end as well too, but she doesn't apply that type of force like Sha'carri is able to do. But, a bunch of different upsets, I feel like, especially for that third spot. But you got to give credit to Twanisha Terry for being mentally strong enough to believe in herself. And that's also comes from the coaching side, because, you're kind of a representative of what you're around in your environment. So this was a really good run. The American team is very strong. You guys always bring a strong team. But as you know, there's the rivalry between America and Jamaica. The Jamaican trials are coming this weekend, and they're already thinking about like, man, we see what they're doing. Now let's see what we can do. But this was all in all a very, very, very good run, very good performance from all of these women. And man, it's got to feel good going to training and you're looking across and you're seeing, man, my training group is the best. And whoever is in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th spot, it is what it is. There's not really much that you can say, but man, it just wasn't our time. And so for these 3 women, for their group, it's a massive, massive weekend already. Those are my thoughts. Those are Chanelle's thoughts. We would love to hear from you. What did you think of this performance? Did any person surprise you? Let us know in the comment section below. Man, we could talk about this a little bit more because we recently just remembered that Mackenzie Long did not make the final, man, which is crazy. But we got to keep it pushing. We got to keep things moving. Let's move on to the men's 100. Man, Christian Coleman misses out. He finishes 4th. Noah Lyles comes through 983. Kenny Benerick, 987. Fred Curley, 988. Fred Curley wearing the Oakleys. What did you think about this race right here?
I did not see Coleman not making the team. You could tell just how disappointed he was when he crossed the line, just sat on the track with his head down, just heart heavy, thinking, what did I do wrong? And the 4th position is the toughest position. It's just, you're right there. He looked better to me in the 2nd round than he did in the final, but you can give us more on why that is, because I don't really understand the 100 as well as you do. But we're sending a very, very strong team like we always do. These 3 men, Lyles, Bednarik, and Curley, they looked great. They showed up when it mattered, and that's what you have to do at the trial. So sad for Coleman, but happy for these 3, and just excited to see what they do at the Olympics. And they're all coming back for the 200, which is really their stronger event for all these guys. So we may see the same 3 make the 200-meter team, which is crazy. So yeah, shout out to them. Excited to see them in Paris.
Again, the U.S. team again brings another strong group. of men in the sprint side. Noah Lyles looked very consistent throughout round one, to the heats, the semis, and the finals. So him running this and him winning isn't really too surprising to me. He's been consistent. We know what he can do once he gets upright running on the back end side of things. So if I could be wrong in this, I think his personal best is probably 983. But Kenny Bednarek was, I'm not going to say he was a surprise, but he was a bit of a sleeper for a lot of people. You always knew that he was right there, but I mean, Christian Coleman put so much pressure on these guys in the early part of the race. And that's kind of what makes him so good, is that shock factor. If I'm out at you, I mean, the way how he ran his semifinal, 986, and he shut it down, and how he set it up in the back end of his race, he looked like he had another gear to go. And so from that performance, you're thinking, man, this guy is in 9-7 shape if he puts it all together. But for me, from the Christian Coleman that I saw, it kind of seemed like he went back to old ways just a little bit. Now, I was able to see over his, especially this year, some changes that him and his coach and his team have been working on. Usually he gets out extremely well, world record holder in the 60, but then he kind of fades a little bit on the back end. And so I've seen some races this year where he kind of held back a little bit at the beginning to have something towards the back end of it. But I felt like in this final, he started out really well, but maybe started out too well. And he wasn't able to get that top end kicked in and hold on like he was able to do and look great in the semis. If he would have duplicated how he ran in the semis, there's no debating he makes this team. But this is the thing about sprints. Like execution, you got to execute in that moment. And so, it was tough to see him not make the team because, he's been through a lot of different things. All these guys have been through a lot of different things. Kenny Bednarek got love from JUCO. You know what I'm saying? JUCO, come from the JUCO level. And Fred too, Fred in his recent weeks, from switching, sponsors and getting back into the Nike shoes, there were some questions about him as well too. And he was able to put forth 3 really good progressive performances and finds a way to make a team. In a high pressure situation, Fred Curley shows up, but so does Noah Lyles. This is the thing when it comes to elite sports, especially in track and field. Everybody can't go. And when America is so deep, sometimes your favorites don't make the team, and they didn't run well. Some of these 997 was like, what? 5th, 6th, 7th, something like that, even to make the final. I think it was Kyrie King who ran 997 and didn't make the final. 997 in most countries, you're making that team. So it just goes to show the level of depth that America has, and then you have the young high school kid, Christian Miller, he bounced back from a nervous heats and showed his poise and the maturity that, you want to see in every sprinter, but he has that as a young sprinter. That's going to help him. Courtney Lindsay, 988 in the semis. He didn't make it in the 100, but he's going to have a great opportunity in the 200. So I always think that the men's 100 is always competitive, but I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite. I think it's open, and that's a great thing. So sucks for Christian Coleman, man, but I think he is still going to make the team. But as someone who ran an individual 100 at the Olympics and ran a relay, you don't really want to just go for the relay. You want to be in that main event in front of the spotlight. But hats off to all these men. It was a great performance. They showed up on the day and executed the best of their ability. Everyone isn't going to make the team, but you can still put forth a great performance. And as we've talked about before, if you've given your all and it just wasn't your day, what more can you really do? But great performance across the board, and we keep things pushing. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who did you think was going to make it? Who did you think wasn't going to make it? Let us know in the comment section below. We keep things moving to the women's 400 meters. Kendall Ellis is back. She won 49-46. Aaliyah Butler, who did not make the finals of the NCAA for Georgia, She was out in the semis in the collegiate system. She comes back and runs 49.71 to make that team. And Alexis Holmes, she broke 50 seconds for the first time. And she was a surprise to a bunch of people, but she came out and ran 49.78. What did you think about this performance right here?
I'm just ecstatic for all three of these women. Took sub 50 to make the USA team. Ellis, I mean, I guess she would say, I'm not back, I'm better, like Sha'carri says, because she has been around these years. She's always making a team. She's always on a relay. But I read something that said this was her first time running a personal best in 6 years. And so she actually ran a personal best in the semifinals. And I was a little worried because when you shock your system like that, sometimes it's hard to bounce back. But she came back the next day and ran another personal best, 49.46. You could just see just the relief. Like, finally, I'm where I know I could have been all these years, and just her resilience, her perseverance to not give up over all these years and to go on and make this Olympic team. Just really, really excited for her. Butler, like you said, she did not make it. She did not make the final at the NCAA championship. So from the very first race at these trials, you could just tell she was on a mission, and she was running with a vengeance, and she was rewarded. Some of these athletes, like the Arkansas women who did make the final at NCAAs, you could just tell the fatigue. You could tell they're just exhausted. But Butler, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because she comes out here and now she is going to Paris. And then Holmes, very, very consistent. She's very consistent. And now she gets that big drop, sub 50, first time, first Olympic team. Just a really, really solid team that we are sending to Paris. Super excited for all of them.
Yeah, again, I feel like the common theme here, as I'll probably continue to say, this is another strong group of women right here. You just talked about Kendall Ellis, personal best in 6 years. You and I know what it feels like to not run fast for some time, or at least run to the potential that that you should be. In the sport of track and field, you try to block certain things out, especially comparison. But, when you look at heat sheets right there, you're seeing comparison. And so I think this is probably one of those races for Kendall Ellis. I don't know her at all. That is that reminder of just like, man, I can actually be here with the best now. When you go that long without a personal best and without feeling like yourself, you kind of doubt yourself. And so for her to come back and make a statement like this, it goes to show like, man, I can be a contender, but I can also medal at the Olympics. I mean, anytime you run sub 50, you got a shot, and Aaliyah Butler, I mean, what can you say other than great job? When you're in the collegiate system, you want to be NCAA champ. You want to at least be in that final, and she wasn't able to be in that final for whatever reason. Maybe it just wasn't her day, but it was her day this weekend, and so for her to come back and run that time goes to show the resilience in her. Alexis Holmes, she ran a great last 100 meters, coming on the back stretch. She was kind of behind a little bit, but she's a tall sprinter, powerful sprinter, and she was able to stay composed and continue to stick to her game plan and to keep lifting, keep pumping her arms. And, when the picture came, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, she might have snuck in there, but it was close because the Arkansas girl who finished fourth, she was there as well too. So USA is always going to bring a strong team, but I feel like right now, Kendall Ellis is probably thinking, man, it is in my grasp that I can come on the podium. And anytime you run a personal best and then you come back and run a personal best, it goes to show, man, your conditioning is nice. So shout out to all of these women. It was a great race. And again, not only are you bringing 3 individuals, but you're also going to bring another 6 women who are all sub 50 as well too. So impressive races, but even greater stories from all of these women as well too. So, we got to keep things pushing. We got to keep things moving. Let us know your thoughts on the women's 400-meter race right here. Let's go over to the men's side. Men's 400-meter, and men, talk about a burst and running all the way through the end. That's what Mr. Quincy Hall did, man. Putting himself to beating Norman and Bailey 44-17, personal best. Norman 44-41, Bailey 44-42. What did you think about this performance in this race right here?
Yeah, I mean, all the talk was on the other Quincy, the high school athlete. So I think these vets are just like, not yet, Quincy. This is our time. But shout out to the high schooler. Just, he had quite the weekend, sub 45 3 times. I don't really have words for that. That's that's ridiculous. Good chance he'll go for the 4x400 meter relay or the mixed relay. I think I'd be shocked if we don't select him for those teams. But back to these three who made the team in the 400 meter. Hall, I think he said in his interview, like, I'm a dog, and that's what we saw. Like he showed up and showed out, and I think that's why the title of this is Quincy Hall the man to beat. I can see him medaling at the Olympics. He looked amazing. Rumor has it he's another JUCO athlete. So so y'all are just different. The toughness that you JUCO athletes have. And then Norman, he's always right there. Very, very consistent. I like that he's on this team as a vet, kind of as a mentor. He's been to Worlds, he's been to Olympics. So it's always nice to have someone who's been there before for the other athletes who haven't. And then Bailey, very, very close to Norman, 441 versus 442. It was a fun race to watch. Like I said, all eyes were on the high school athlete, but these vets said, not yet, young man, not yet.
It always goes to show, like, and we say this when we train athletes, definitely watch out for our camps moving forward. But when we train athletes, it's like the distance is the distance for everybody. Yeah, there are some lanes that are better, right? You don't really want to be in lane 1 or lane 2. You don't really want to be in those lanes, especially if you're a taller person, but 400 meters is 400 meters. Bailey got third from like lane 8 or 9. So he couldn't see nobody, And so what I like about Quincy Hall, and I think maybe it is the character and the development of the last 100 meters of the 400. You're already tired. Your threshold is already done. And so it's more of who wants it more and how much more can you dig. And that's exactly what we saw from Quincy Hall, man. He was just digging, staying tall. And when Norman tightened up, he just blew right by him. I've always been told in sprinting, it's an aggressive, relaxed movement forward, and sometimes just being relaxed is enough for you to zoom by a person even for a little bit. And that's what Quincy did. He looked like he caught a second win, and Michael Norman kind of seemed like he did take it out a little bit too hard in that first 300, in the first 200, and he just didn't have that same kick that he usually does in the back end of it. When he was consistent 43 guy, he was with the pack in the backstretch, but then he separated himself and he tried to do that, but he hasn't raced a lot. And so I don't know if he's 100% race ready and race sharp, but you can't take any credit away from Quincy Hall and from what he was able to do. You got to be able to run the race on the day, and that's exactly what he did. Another strong team for the Americans, man, as you guys always have. But to touch on Quincy Wilson, because he's been talked about so much, and again, you can speak more about this as you did. You're the child prodigy, not me. There's absolutely no pressure on him, and sometimes when you don't have any pressure, you run free. You don't care, and his coach was saying there was so much pressure on him, and it's like, no, for what? There is none, but the athletes always put pressure on themselves no matter what their age is. When you're ready to run fast, you're ready to run fast. The body doesn't care about the age. And so for him to be able to put together 3 races under 45 seconds each time, go sit down, man, and enjoy your summer. And I'm hoping that he does go and he does get the experience, and maybe he does get to touch the track at the Olympics. It would be great, but sometimes they don't really pick it like that. We'll see. But America always has a strong team, and this year is no different. To answer the question, is he the man to beat? he's one of the men to beat, because there is you know, Christian Morales Williams, he's still got the world lead. Alexander Doom, the indoor champion from Germany, he ran 44:10. Cronny James is still back, and these guys are going to show up as well too. So he's definitely one of the men to beat. But in America, all of these men could be the men to beat. Great race. Looking forward to seeing what happens next for these guys moving forward. Okay, we keep things pushing to the women's 8. This was probably one of the biggest surprises, not even surprises, shocks so far, because this, as you can see on the screen, there is no Athing Mu in the top 3. Nia Akins won at 157.35. Ali Wilson 158.32. Juliet Whitaker 158.45. You saw the race, but when we were laying down last night, you said, I got to watch it again because I don't even know what happened. What did you think about this race right here?
Yeah, I think the fall that we saw Mo experience kind of overshadowed the 3 women that made the team. So shout out to them. They went out and competed, ran awesome times, and Akins, Wilson, and Whitaker are going to the Olympics. So I just want to congratulate them first. But seeing Mo fall, I think that was the biggest gasp I've ever made in my life. I mean, it was just like, what just happened? Can she come back? And then to see her, she tried for probably up into 500 meters and then realized like I'm not catching these women, but still finished the race. And you could just see the sadness, the shock, the what just happened on her face as the camera followed her off the track. And it was just heartbreaking. And we're not sending the American record holder and the reigning Olympic gold medalist to this year's Olympics. And you see a lot of people online saying USA needs to change its selection process for circumstances like this, when our best 800-meter athlete can no longer go because of a mishap. Should there be some type of rule that says, no, we're sending her? And I don't really see that happening, because the USA is just so deep that we're always going to just send the best 3 on that day. That's just the fairest way in the USA, whereas other countries do have discretion to send other athletes. But USA, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So it's unfortunate, but we are still sending a very strong team. I just hope that Mo has a strong support system right now, because the devastation that I can only imagine she's feeling, it just, words can't explain it. So I just hope she's okay. And I know it's going to take some time for her to be okay.
Very well said. I think you hit the, what's the saying? Hit the head on the nail. Hit the nail on the head. This is the same thing. When you said it just sucks because these women are going to get overshadowed by the fall. And it sounds crazy, but it's a realistic picture of things because of everything that comes with the thing and what she's been able to accomplish. She's not going to be able to defend her Olympic gold. She's going to be watching, and that never feels good. If you lose, you lose, but to not be able to defend it, it's going to hurt, and that feeling will never fully go away. We were talking last night after about exactly what you said. They're going to petition and maybe she'll be able to, but I'm like, how? You're going to rerun the whole race? And if you petition her, then you got to put in Sage Hurta-Klecker as well too, because she was affected by it, and then what? You're going to put those 2 against the clock, and then hopefully, like, there's just no situation where it's fair. But I think this is also one of those things for those watching, and especially if you're a younger athlete, like, track and field don't love you. Like, sports doesn't love you. It's not a fair thing because things like this can happen. There are things that are out of your control. But what I liked about Athing, she took back what was in her control and to say, you know what, I did fall, but at least I'm going to finish. So unfortunate. But I mean, Nia Akins, she pulled away from the pack. She looked strong. She looked good. Ali Wilson, it seemed like Michaela Rose was going to slide in there for 3rd, but Ali Wilson kept fighting. And I feel like that's probably the word that best describes Juliet Whitaker. She just fights. She just finds a way how to win, how to make teams, especially with this being the biggest team that she's made. But she's also NCAA champ indoor and outdoor. She just finds a way to do it. She's a fighter. Kind of reminds me of you in some ways by all the injuries that you've had to overcome to continue to fight. And I think sometimes, even when the talent might not fully be as big as somebody else's, sometimes the heart and the will can even the balance in the playing field. And yes, 158 is fast, but she's a fighter, man. And I like that about her. She just doesn't care. And I like that about her. So USA sending a strong team as they usually do. But, it's always going to come as like, man, the Olympic champ isn't there though. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Things happen, and you want to make sure it doesn't happen on the day that it's like this, but it is out of your control. So congratulations to these women. Still a strong team, and who knows? Maybe a thing will go for one of the mixed relays. Who knows? 4x4. Who knows? But honestly, I'm not even sure that she'd probably be in the mental space to want to go if it ended like this. But we would love to know your thoughts, and we keep things pushing because we got more to come. We're talking about the men's 1500. The question is, can Cole Hawker compete with Josh Kerr and Jakob Ingebrigtsen? He ran with a time of 3:30.59. Jared Naguse second, 3:30.86, and a guy that I've grown to like, Mr. Hobbs Kessler, 3:31.53. What did you think about this performance right here? Were you surprised by Cole Hawker winning?
I wasn't surprised. He showed a kick I've never seen him have, or it's been a while that he's had this kick. He showed that in the round, so I wasn't surprised. I loved how Naguse kept the race fast, and he said in his post-race interview, I just wanted to do my thing, and if you were going to beat him, you were going to have to run fast, and that's what Cole Hawker did. The question that we have: can Hawker compete with Kerr and Ingebrigtsen? I think so. I mean, the finish that this guy had, it was something else. And when you run away from someone like Naguse, you're showing that you're ready to compete with the best. And all eyes are on Kerr and Ingebrigtsen. Sometimes it's nice to be that sleeper. And so I think Hawker will just return to training and figure out a way to get on that podium. So shout out to these three. USA Trials record that Hawker ran. I love fast races when they don't just do the boring sit and kick. Naguse kept it honest, and like you said, Kessler, you're turning into a fan. He's a dog. He runs hard. He's a competitor. So really strong squad, like we keep saying for each event. Excited to see how they go out to Paris and show up and represent USA.
Before I give my take, has Cole Hawker always had that kick?
We saw it a lot when he was at Oregon. Last few years, I would say he struggled a bit, but this is the strongest I've ever seen him.
Yeah, that kick is strong. As you said, I can't stand a tactical race. Oh, I can't stand you lead. No. I want to see courage. I want to see risk. I want to see you go take the champion. I want to see you become the champion by going out and say, man, I'm not, tactics is cool. And that's probably why I like Ingebrigtsen, because he don't care about tactics like that. He's going to go and try to run fast every single time. This was a good race. On the back stretch, I was wondering when Cole was going to take that kick, because he has a great kick. I didn't know it was like that for me. I haven't been watching him for too long, but I'm like, man, when's he going to go? But I was expecting Naguse to go with him. And I think he tried. It just wasn't there on the day. And, Hobbs Kessler, man, he's been running very consistent. And I like him because he's a fearless guy. He seems like he's just one of those cats that go out and say, okay, I'm going to just try to stick with these guys. And if they take me lightly, I'm going to creep in. And that's exactly what he did. He got the third to make the team. But to go back to the question, can Hawker compete with Josh Kerr and Ingebrigtsen? Absolutely. But the thing is, there's this level where he's got the meet record. He's the US champion. But then there's the 329. Like, I was looking at last year's race, Cole Hawker's time, that puts him in fifth, sixth, which is great because he finished, I think, seventh or eighth last year. It's great. He's moved up. But it goes to show, man, if you want to compete with those two, that there's more work to be done. But in a fast race, anybody can be outkicked if they're in the right position. At least that's my opinion. I know that's a sprinter saying that, so they might not feel different. But my distance community, just know, I'm trying to get it right for you guys. But it was a good performance, and the 1500 is starting to be one of those events that you just can't miss. You got to stay tuned in. It feels like the distance version of the 100, But I think he can. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can in a month. Yeah, I guess a month and some change now. So we would love to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comment section below. What do you think? We keep things pushing to the women's 5,000. What a finish. I'm going to give my thoughts first because I want to hear more from you. I got very quick thoughts. Look, 14 minutes of watching people run around is not something that I've always been the nicest at, but this was a very good run. I've never really seen, Parker Valby get separated on like that. She's been so dominant at the collegiate level, but the pros is a different thing, but I mean, the last 100 meters, I don't know how do y'all save energy? How do y'all be able to kick like this? But I thought it was a good race, and the 5,000, you know what? I might watch the heats next time. St. Pierre did her thing. Good run.
Shout out to Parker, man. I know she came in fourth, but she took the lead from the start and just kept the race honest. I was blown away by her courage. She's like, I know I'm a collegiate and y'all are pros and y'all do this for a living, but I believe in myself and I believe I can make this team. I'm going to keep this race fast. That's what she did. And when St. Pierre took the lead, she tried to go with them, and she fought, and just shout out to her. What a season. She has a lot more races on her legs than these other women, and just really excited to see. We were talking about this last night. Where does she go now? Yeah. Because Val, she's a little bit different. She doesn't run a lot of mileage. She cross trains a lot because she's injury prone. And so a professional coach is going to have to understand that she can't really train like you would say these three women train, like getting in all those miles. And so excited to see where she goes and what the coach does with her. But back to these three vets who did make the team. Like you said, that finish, what separated it? 0.34 versus 0.36. That's like how I mean, and then we were watching it and I was like, no way Cranny is going to outkick St. Pierre. St. Pierre can run the 800, she can run the 1500, but Cranny was like, not today. I'm going to make you work. And it was at the line, a lean, very, very, very exciting race. Schweitzer gets in there as well to round out a phenomenal team. It's always hard to compete with the Kenyans, the Ethiopians. So excited to see how these women do in Paris. But I think St. Pierre is coming back to run the 1500 meter. They all might be coming back to run the 15. So just the incredible, you're like, why do we have a 2-day break? And I'm like, these men, they need a little rest. They're all coming back, whether it's for the 10K or the 1500. It's a tough double. They have 2 rounds of the 5K in their legs already. So, yeah, just shout out to them. Shout out to Parker. It was a fun race to watch.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And we keep things pushing. Look, we haven't forgotten about the fields. Come on now, Run Your Race show. We do everything. But they had some stressful things as well, too, happening over there. The reigning discus world champion, Lalaga Tasaga, and the hammer throwing world leader right now, Brooke Anderson, both struggled. We were seeing Lalaga's Tasaga's discus curve to the left. And we were like, what's going on? Like, this is the world champ, you know. But one of the things that we've talked about before, and we tell athletes that we work with, you know, people can talk about, you can see the start sheet and what they've done this year. But the one thing you can't forget about, that people often forget about, is the human emotion, the nerves, the anxiety, all of that stuff. We don't know what was going on inside of her head, but something did not look right. What did you think about this right here? Because these are two probably shoo-in for either gold or silver or some type of medal that are not returning. What goes through your mind when you see this?
Yeah, for these two to not be on our team, it's just like you said, what was going on that day? You know, you just never know what people are battling behind the scenes, and it could have just been an off day. It could have been personal matters. We just don't know unless they come out and say it, which they don't have to.
Yeah.
But it's just a shocker for especially the field community who follows these women. For them, it was like you said, it was almost a shoe-in. They didn't even really have to be at their best. They just really had to show up and execute. And for some reason, they were not able to execute on the day that mattered. And it goes back to what we were talking about with Athing Mo. Like, you sometimes you wish there was some type of rule where we could say we're still going to send our best, but that's just not how it works in the USA. So hope they're doing all right mentally. I'm sure they're not. Probably beating themselves up, questioning just what happened. And it's just sad. That's just the word that comes to mind. Just really sad.
Yeah, but you know, America is going to also send another strong team as well. To, you know, Valerie Allman. I mean, she threw 70 meters with just one throw. You know, in the discus side of things. So, you know, it's just tough. But this is part of the reality of the sport. You never think your worst day is going to be on the day that you can make your first, second Olympic team or any major championship. So tough break to these women, and you know, it's not the end of the story. It's just a, you know, tough page in the story. But let us know your thoughts here. Obviously, some of the field events are still going on, and we'll definitely come back and cover those. But let's keep things pushing. That was U.S. trials, but it is trial season. As you can see, you know, USA there, Canada here. So there's also every other country's trials. I'm talking about, you know, the German trials, Canadian trials, Jamaican trials, British trials, Austrian trial, Netherlands, like Dutch. Like there's every other country. It's this weekend as well too. But what I always liked, for me, being from a different country, what I always liked was, man, USA kind of sets the tone. You know, it kind of makes you think, okay, we've been watching these guys for a week. You know, this is what they're running. Okay, now it's our turn to perform, you know. And so I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, Andre DeGrasse and Aaron Brown and Azamata, Brandon Rodney, Balade Ajamale, and so many of the other sprinters coming up, Jerome Blake. Like, it's going to have a strong team on the Canadian side, but none of that's guaranteed anymore because our group of men are getting faster. So is the women. You know, British trial is going to be good as well, too. I also read that Zarnell Hughes is not going to be competing in the one or the two. He's got a medical exemption, which goes to show that maybe his injury is a little bit more severe than we think. We're not going to know, but hopefully they put him on that team. And then obviously the Jamaican trials. You know, you were showing me some things on Twitter that, you know, Jamaican Twitter were going crazy about, saying, yo, just wait. You know, so we are going to see Shelly Ann, Sharika, and Elaine is there as well too. And, you know, as we talked about when she got hurt, I said, don't be surprised if you see her on that start list. She could be there, but we don't have a crazy idea of what is going to be run, but I know it's going to be fast. I know they're going to jump far. They're going to throw far. It's going to be good. So what is your just general thoughts on every other country's trials, and kind of what are you looking forward to Dutch trials as well too, which means Femke Ball is also going to be running as well too. Licky Klaver and their group, Lee Marvin Bonavicia, so their group of athletes as well too. What do you think about?
Yeah, I think you said it well. Like, how are they going to respond? Because USA's trials does usually seem to be first, and so then it's like, okay, y'all did your thing. Now it's our turn. We've been waiting. We've been watching, and so just really excited to see how these other athletes from these other countries do. But I also am a little biased, and I'm more excited to watch the second half of the USA trials. We're on a little break. They give the athletes a break today and tomorrow, and then the second half of the trials is Thursday through Sunday. So we have the hurdles on the men's and women's side. We have the 200 on the men's and women's side. We have the women's long jump, men's triple jump, Sydney McLaughlin in the 400-meter hurdles. So I shout out to the other country and their trials coming up, but I can't wait to see the second half of the USA trials. And it's always nice to see those athletes who are doubling, who did not make the team, like Mackenzie Long, the fire that she's going to have in her to come back in the 200 and make the team. Coleman, it's 200. He may shock somebody, he's angry, does he come back and make the team in the 200? We'll see, but just excited to see the storylines unfold on the USA side, but also excited to see how the other countries respond.
And before we move forward to our last topic, we also got to give a quick shout out to, all of the women triple jumpers. I believe Jasmine Moore won, but I don't think any of those women have standard. So they're playing the waiting game to see if they're going to get in. I know it's Kenturi, her last year, so she's going to retire. Anna Hall coming back from surgery, and she found her way to make the team. Same with Talia Brooks. I think Talia Brooks is still waiting. She doesn't have standards, so she's still waiting to see if she will get in. So shout out to all those women. Men's long jump as well too. I believe Jeremiah Davis, 825. I believe he won that. But also all the other men, Jaron Lawson, last jump, he qualified to get third. So many other performances that we're going to be talking about. Next week is a lot to cover. But we're going to cover it and we're going to be here. But as we get to our run your race topic, the past couple weeks have been a little jokey, a little lighthearted. But you posed a great question, and I think with the Olympics coming, like it's a great question to answer because Kate Grace is 35 now, so you think about what's next and how much longer can I do this. Kenturi, she is done after this year, so it's like everyone isn't going to go another cycle. If you're 28, yeah, you might go to another cycle if you could, but if you're on the 32 and up, you're like, man, I'm gonna be 35, 36, 37. When is the right time to call it a career? You and I being retired now, what are some of those signs or some of those thoughts about, man, is this it for me? And I guess, how did you kind of know?
Yeah, this came to mind because I did retire after the 2021 Olympic trials, and everybody thought I was crazy because I had just run a personal best. And for me, the question was, do I have what it takes to go another 3 years until the 2024 Olympic trials? Do I have what it takes physically, mentally, emotionally, financially? Just, you really have to sit down and be realistic with yourself. That's the biggest thing. And the answer for me was it ended up being no. I didn't have that desire to keep going to the well and just quote unquote putting life on hold to go another 3 more years. Emotionally, I didn't have it. Mentally, I just didn't really want to do it anymore. So you were in my corner when I was making that decision. It is a very tough decision. For you, I don't really think it was as tough, but I'll let you tell your own story. But for a lot of people, it's a hard decision. But I always say, you'll know. Like, I just knew, and you did as well. And so take your time, talk to people in your circle, and really, really be realistic with yourself. Do I truly have what it takes? And the answer for me was no.
Yeah, I think for me it was the same and similar in some ways. because I think you really have to. There's certain things you really just gotta love it. Like I'd be talking to certain teammates in training, and the way how they would describe track and describe this thing, I'm like, man, like they really, really love this. Like I've talked to some teammates who said, man, I would do this into my 40s, and I'm just like, really? Like that just wasn't for me. And so you also brought up some good points. You got to be practical about it. Can I do this for the next 4 years financially and be okay? Can I do this for the next 4 years in a good headspace, mental space? And you got to ask yourself, like, and make it the questions very simple. Like, do you want to? Do you want to? And for me, I just didn't really want to anymore.
I didn't either.
Yeah, like, I think it's that, like, some things you'll be able to feel and to say, man, like something is off. Like I would be in practice personally sometimes, and I would be thinking I would be in practice physically, but my mind would be elsewhere. And you never want to do that, because you can't days in and days out, because it means you're something about that training is not aligned.
Yeah, and you got to be all in. You got to be locked in. Same with me. I found myself competing a little bit after the trials. I just didn't want to be there. I was just going through the motions, and that's one thing you can't do. You can't just do it to do it. You have to be all in. There has to be a level of desire and love, like you said, and I didn't have it anymore.
You got to have that love and that desire, because you're not always going to get compensated well for it. And when you take the money aside, you got to go back to that high school you that was just happy to miss a day of school, And so for me, it was just like, man, I actually want to do something else. And also what made it easier for me was I didn't take any days off. I gave my all, like every single day since I was 15, started taking it seriously. Like I gave my all to it. So if I would have retired after college, I gave my all to it. And so you want to be sure that you want to give your all to it, and not question if I did give my all to it. I don't question it. I gave my all to it. Regardless of my personal best, do I think I could have ran faster? Absolutely, I could have. I see people that, I used to beat, and they got faster personal best than me, right? It is what it is. When you're able to give your all to something and you say, man, I've left no stone unturned in your part. Sometimes your coaches might have regrets. They might say, man, I would have done this a little bit differently. That's not about you. That's on them. But if you gave your all to it and you left every stone unturned, you can walk away from it. But as we've said, you'll know when that time is near. And the other thing too is, Father Time, man. Hey, when you wake up and the joints are a little bit sore, and it's taking you a little bit longer to recover, and you don't have the excitement to get up to want to recover, those could also be signs too. But those were just some of our things. We could go deeper into it. Maybe that's another conversation another day. But every athlete has to come to that for themselves. When is the right time for you? I don't know. We just gave you tips on our experiences. We don't know what yours is like, but you will know when you feel the urge to say, you know what, I think this is it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to be a journey, but when you've given your all to something, what more else can you do? You should be proud of yourself regardless, So that's kind of it for us on that topic. Maybe at a future conference, Run Your Race future conference, we can talk a little bit more about that. But that's it for this week's show. I mean, we discussed a lot of different things. We would love to hear your thoughts. We would love to hear from you. What did you think about it? What have you been following the most? And of course, so many more trials this weekend that we will cover next weekend. So with all that being said, thank you for watching. Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel. If you made it this far, you might as well subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for taking the time. We don't take it for granted, and we'll definitely see you next time.